more than a few female singers who set the stage for the 70s era of music and pretty much led from the front lines. Sadly, in this pool of undeniable talents are a couple of forgotten names who've, since then, just vanished overnight. What exactly happened? Carly Simon. Miss Simon didn't just become a pop sensation overnight. In fact, before pretty much ruling the world, Carly started off performing with her sister Lucy Simon. Soon after, Lucy left the group and Carly found quite some success going solo with her 1971 self-titled debut album, which won her the Grammy Award for Best New Artist. What followed were a string of hit records, including Anticipation and Legend in Your Own Time, from her second album, which earned her another Grammy nod, and became her first album to be RIAA certified gold. So, how did it all go downhill from here? Well, for starters, a lack of genre categorization meant that Miss Simon really couldn't market her music. She still remains a key figure in 70s music nonetheless. Bette Midler. Speaking of key female figures in the 70s music landscape, it would be a sin against the 70s not to mention the divine Miss Bette Midler. Not just anyone dominates as a singer, then transitions to acting and still knocks it out of the park. Well, Miss Midler is just not anyone. She began her illustrious career on a couple of off-Broadway plays back in the 1960s before the 70s came rolling in. A couple of decades later, and Midler had released up to 14 studio albums as a solo artist, receiving 4 gold, 3 platinum, and 3 multi-platinum albums by RIAA. As if her success in music wasn't already enough, she also ruled Hollywood with her film debut, The Rose, earning her a Golden Globe. Well, it would definitely be a stretch to say Bette Midler stopped being popular, but her popularity did wane majorly over time. Her age, a change in the entertainment landscape, and less frequent projects are some of the factors that contributed to this wane. But anyone who lived through the 70s definitely knows the name Bette Midler. Betty Wright. Not every name will be as big as Bette Midler's, but that does not make their influence on the 70s any less important. And that brings us to the legendary Betty Wright. She was signed to her first label in 1966. Her first album was released when she was 14, with a couple of minor hits on it. However, it wasn't until 1971 that she got an actual hit, her signature song, Clean Up Woman. Mind you, she was only 17 when this happened. Well, she wouldn't be on this list if it wasn't all roses from here on. Her popularity declined severely in the 80s, mainly because her record label, TK Records, went bankrupt. Miss Wright struggled to find support for her music. In no time, the world forgot all about her. Despite this, she continued to perform music up until her unfortunate demise in 2020, a legacy of youthful excellence. Joan Baez. If you lived through the 70s, the name Joan Baez isn't one that would be forgotten too easily. Her relationship and falling out with Bob Dylan probably contributed to that. But she's definitely more than that. A lot more than that. The singer is praised for quite a lot of things, but her versatility and influence take the front row. While she's generally regarded as a folk singer, her music has diversified since the 60s and encompasses quite a few genres: folk rock, pop, gospel music, and country. But even with all this, Joan Baez still remains a bit of an obscure name. Why? Her strong political activism, which oftentimes alienated audiences, is a major reason for this. Also, her relationship with Bob Dylan and his rise to fame overshadowing her is another contributing factor. Nevertheless, Joan Baez ruled the 60s and 70s. Chaka Khan. The Queen of Funk herself, Chaka Khan. With a career spanning over 5 decades and even having worked with some iconic names like Robert Palmer, Ray Charles, Joni Mitchell, Guru, Chicago, and even more recent names like Ariana Grande and Sia, Miss Khan has more than earned her title as the Queen of Funk. Chaka Khan didn't go it alone back in the 70s. She was the lead singer of the funk band Rufus. They actually struggled to make it big. Their eponymous debut album, their first under ABC Records, despite their fiery rendition of Stevie Wonder's Maybe Your Baby, failed to gain attention. It wasn't until Wonder himself collaborated with the group on the song Tell Me Something Good that they gained the attention they deserved. Miss Khan was with the band up until the release of her solo debut album in 1978, which featured the disco hit I'm Every Woman. From then right to the 1990s, Miss Khan enjoyed worldwide fame. 3 gold singles, 3 gold albums, and 1 platinum album. But it would all fizzle out towards the end of the 90s due to changing musical landscape, vocal cord problems, certain personal challenges, and a lack of major label support. Despite all of these, she remains a key figure in the 70s musical landscape. Chaka Khan remains the queen of funk. Anne Murray.
I'll never fall.
Anne Murray was arguably the first Canadian singer to make it big in the US. In 1970, she reached #1 on the US charts, making her the first Canadian female solo singer to do so. Miss Murray paved the way for other Canadian success stories like Katie Lang, Shania Twain, and Celine Dion. But getting there was no easy feat for the singer. As a kid, she'd take a long bus ride every Saturday morning from Spring Hill to Tamagotchi, Nova Scotia, for singing lessons. Miss Murray's crossover to the US music scene came with the single Snowbird, which was a #1 hit in Canada and became a surprise hit in the US, reaching #8 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1970. Well, Miss Murray is a lot more special than the other names on here. Why? Because she didn't just disappear over time. Apparently, she lost her joy for singing at some point. Plus, she felt exploited by the industry. After her final tour in 2008, she closed the door on the industry. Now, the name Anne Murray seems like a fleeting dream, a name that remains engraved in history nevertheless. Melanie.
We are only putting in our little to get rid of.
There are female singers of the 70s who, regardless of their undeniable talent, never gained the attention they deserved. One of those women is Melanie. Remember her? Probably not, but you should. Melanie, unlike the other singers on our list, didn't even enjoy commercial success up until the 80s. She's mainly known for her early 70s hit, Brand New Key, her 1970 version of Ruby Tuesday by Rolling Stones, her composition, What Have They Done to My Song Ma, and her 1970 international breakthrough hit, Lay Down, which peaked at #6 on the Billboard Singles Chart. While these are certainly not a lot, her influence in the 70s is still undeniable. Unsurprisingly, Melanie isn't a household name. She was just unable to keep up with the shifting musical trends in the mid to late 70s, with disco music pushing out folk-oriented sound. Sadly, Melanie is no longer with us, but her music and influence will definitely live forever. Andrea True. Still on female singers who didn't enjoy fame all the way to the 80s, we have Andrea True, woman who lived 2 separate lives. One as an overnight disco sensation, and the second as an American adult film actress. During her heyday, throughout the 70s, Miss True appeared in more than 50 adult films. In 1975, she was hired by a real estate business in Jamaica to appear in a few commercials. While she worked there, the Jamaican government banned asset transfers in response to sanctions imposed by the US after Michael Manley's election. So, before Ms. True could travel back to the US, she could either completely forfeit the pay or spend all of the money. She chose the latter rather than investing the money in recording more. And just like that, True had hit the jackpot. In no time, the song became a favorite in nightclubs, topping the disco chart and even reaching #4 on the Billboard Hot 100. Ms. True went into singing full-time and never returned to the adult film industry. However, none of her subsequent music made it big. Plus, unlike Melanie, who couldn't get into the disco era, Ms. True couldn't move away from it. Her popularity faded away with the era, but you certainly can't talk about the disco era without talking about Andrea True. Doris Troy. The 70s female singer who got her biggest hit in the 60s, Doris Troy, or as fans call her, Mama Soul. Before Miss Troy went into the recording industry, she wrote for a couple of musicians and even worked as a backup vocalist for Atlantic Records alongside Donnie and Dee Dee Warwick. In 1963, she eventually co-wrote and recorded Just One Look, a song which hit number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song was recorded in just 10 minutes and was the only charting song of Miss Troy's career. She moved to London in 1969 and was signed by the Beatles to their Apple Records label. Under the label, she released the Doris Troy album the following year. Even after her solo career peaked, she continued to sing backup for several big names, like the Rolling Stones, Carly Simon, Edgar Broughton, and many more. The changing musical landscape meant that Miss Troy's soul and R&B style just couldn't make the cut. Regardless, she continued to perform and record music until her sad demise in 2004. Her legacy as a pioneering female R&B singer and songwriter means the name Doris Troy will live forever. Jeannie C. Riley. Still an overnight sensation, next up is a country singer turned gospel singer, Jeannie C. Riley. A woman whose overnight hit became the reason she vanished as quickly as she gained fame. Before fame, Miss Riley was a secretary for Passkey Music in Nashville while recording several demos on the side. Her career was pretty much stagnant until Mercury Records producer Shelby Singleton received a demo tape of Riley's voice. Seeing loads of potential in the demo song Harper Valley PTA, he worked with Miss Riley to record it. The song was released in 1968 and became a hit. It topped the Hot Country Songs chart and the Billboard Hot 100, a feat not repeated by a female artist until Dolly Parton's 1981 hit 9 to 5. The song earned Miss Riley a Grammy Award. She followed Harper Valley PTA with others, The Girl Most Likely, There Never Was a Time, and so on. She became known mostly for her sex appeal, an image Miss Riley herself didn't like and wanted to change. She then switched to gospel music and broke free from her sex pot image. This pretty much did it for her audience, and in no time, she faded into obscurity. Nevertheless, Miss Riley ruled the early 70s. Bonnie Tyler. You may remember her for a lot of things, but first and foremost, it will, 9 out of 10 times, be her voice. Miss Tyler had a distinctive husky voice that made it easy to sing whenever she came up on the radio. Her rise to fame didn't happen overnight. The singer first started off in a band before talent scout Roger Bell heard her and invited her to record a demo track. What followed was a recording contract from RCA Records, a ton of promotion, and her first album, The World Starts Tonight, which has It's a Heartache, one of Miss Tyler's most successful singles to date, peaking at number 4 on the UK and number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. Miss Tyler wasn't much affected by the change in the musical landscape. Why? When the 80s came rolling in, she actually ventured into rock music and released her biggest hit, Total Eclipse of the Heart, the lead single from her 1983 album, Faster Than the Speed of Night. Regardless of this, her novelty act image remained a bit of a problem for her. Miss Tyler's image in music never stopped being associated with the bombastic style of the 80s. That, coupled with a lack of major label support, meant that she couldn't make it to the 90s music scene. Bonnie Tyler, however, continues to remain an iconic part of music history. Minnie Riperton. We've had some sad and thought-provoking careers so far, promising talents that just couldn't keep up. However, none are quite as tragic as Minnie Riperton's, the soul singer who captured our hearts when she was only a teen, a singer who was taken from us way too soon. You may remember the name from 1975, the #1 single, Loving You. But before that, she sang lead vocals for the Chicago-based girl group The Gems when she was still a teenager. Her early affiliations with Chess Records gave her the opportunity to record backing vocals for several established artists such as Etta James, Fontella Bass, Ramsey Lewis, and a lot more. It wasn't until 1974, when Miss Riperton released her debut album titled Perfect Angel, that the world knew of this breathtaking talent. But just 2 years later, Miss Riperton was diagnosed with breast cancer. Despite this, she continued recording music and touring. She was one of the first artists to go public with a breast cancer diagnosis. 5 years later, the world lost this special woman. She was just 31, but it seemed like she'd live a lifetime. Minnie Riperton is a name that no one should forget, a name that shouldn't vanish with time. And with that, our little trip to the 70s music scene comes to an end. What's there to say that hasn't already been said? These names might have been forgotten, but they deserve a lot more. These queens pioneered decades of music, and for that, they deserve to be remembered forever.